Hello and welcome to the Father and Son Formula One podcast. This week we're talking about the Dutch Grand Prix at Zaandvort. I'm Graham Miller, the father, and this is
Toby, the son. Hello.
So straight into it. Free practice 1 was really horribly rainy for the first 10 minutes, and then gradually it dried out, so it was kind of one of those weird. I think people needed to get some running after the summer break to kind of see what was going on, but it was a bit kind of intermediates to slicks. It wasn't kind of representative, although obviously Lando was fastest, followed by Max.
Yeah, so it shook out the same, basically.
I mean, one of the weird things about the Zaandvort track that they were saying all weekend is A, it's next to the sea, and B, it's very kind of roller coaster. It goes up and it goes down. So you get breezes and winds coming in off the sea, and when you're in a dip you don't notice them. Then you pop up to the top of a crest and suddenly your aero goes nuts because the wind is gusting, and then you pop back down and it's all fine.
There's banking as well and stuff.
Yeah, it's banking.
Yeah, the wind was mentioned a few times, I think, throughout qualifying, like gusts.
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll get to qualifying in a minute, but I think that accounted for some of the weirdness that happened in qualifying.
Yeah.
And like you say, it's banked as well. It's
a weird track.
I would say it's almost second to somewhere like Monaco or Singapore for being an unrepresentative track.
Yeah, almost.
It kind of needs its own weird setup in a way.
Yeah, I think the banking definitely contributes to that as well.
FP2 was kind of business
standard.
as usual, really, yeah.
Yeah, except it was Russell from Piastri, Hamilton, Norris.
But again, as with all the free practice sessions, we don't really know.
You don't pay too much attention to them.
No. Oh, actually, go back to free practice 1 a minute. I forgot to look it up. Was there anybody out there who shouldn't be there, if you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Robert Schwartzman.
Robert Schwartzman in a kick Sauber Ferrari.
And he was alright. He was 16th.
Yeah, in a kick, actually. I mean, he was a way off Joe, but, you know.
He was scroll down a minute.
Beating Ocon, Ricciardo, Gasly and Sargent.
I mean, that's a pretty good showing, to be honest. I mean, Bottas.
Those three are race winners. Somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's another name to look out for in the future.
Mm-hmm.
FP2, business as usual.
Yeah, 30 laps, 110s across the board.
FP3, I actually watched this one live.
I didn't.
Well, he didn't miss much because what actually happened was Logan Sargent went 2 wheels onto the grass. He actually got his 2 wheels up on the curb.
Yeah.
And as he kept rolling, he rolled off the curb onto what was basically wet grass. And once the traction hit the wet grass, he was a passenger.
Yeah, it just swapped ends, basically.
Yeah, it took quite a heavy hit into the barriers, but the worst thing was it caught the car on fire.
Yeah, which is never good.
Now, the weird thing that happens here is in the free practice sessions, because they're kind of... A race weekend is a lot of events. You've got like FP2, you've got some of them, we've got the... what do they call the W Series now? Academy.
F1 Academy, F2, F3. It's run to a really tight schedule, basically.
So although the red flag was out for, I think, about half an hour in the session, I actually saw them taking bits of barrier actually off and clearing the track up and everything.
Yeah.
They keep the clock running, so they've barely got any FP3. And as they were saying on the commentary, and I immediately thought, I know because I mess around with cars a lot, burned out cars are horrible things. If you ever see a burned out car, don't go near it, basically, because things like brake lines, brake fluids, linings, when they burn, they all create weird, horrible chemicals.
Yeah, and also the batteries and the MGUs and stuff, all electrical, because you said that the fire looked kind of off-coloured. It was kind of purpley red, not like orange.
Yeah, normally when you see a fuel or an oil fire, you get that kind of classic black smoke.
Yeah, like what Grosjean had in Bahrain. That was very
like
obvious
really
fuel fire.
Fast fires that are really bright orangey yellow almost. And I thought it might have been the rear-facing camera that was suffering a bit from the heat.
Yeah.
But it did look quite kind of... Like I said to Toby, when you do like your chemistry at school and you burn things like sodium or potassium or copper or something. You hold it in a Bunsen burner flame to see what colour it goes. It reminded me of that, to be honest, which is never good.
Yeah, weird high chemicals burning up, probably battery things.
But
basically, they didn't get it fixed for qualifying.
To be honest, I'm surprised it was in the race unless they had a spare chassis.
I think they did, because they said after the whole Albon stealing Sargent's chassis thing, they basically said we should have had a spare chassis, we're going to do that. And then they actually, I think, did get a spare chassis.
I thought it was more of a cost constraint that when Albon nicked Sargent's car, they were in the process of building up a spare chassis in the factory because they hadn't had enough money to do it up to that point.
Yeah, but I think they have got one now and they used it on Sargent's car to get it ready for the race.
Yeah, because to be honest, they're going to have to strip out the whole back end of that car. They're probably going to have to put the chassis on a jig to make sure it hasn't twisted in the heat, and then rebuild pretty much everything from the ground up on that.
Yeah.
It was a big, expensive accident, which is a point we'll come back to.
Yeah. But it also meant that we got, in qualifying, we got the kind of amusing Gasly, Magnussen, Bottas top three, which I don't think has ever happened ever.
God, can you imagine if that was a race result? Alpine, Haas and Kick.
Yeah, it'd be awesome because look, Norris would have come fourth and Verstappen's nowhere near the points, so it would have been a bit of a championship fight as well.
Yeah.
Also, best day for Alpine basically ever.
Yeah. Well, certainly this season.
More points for Sauber than they've scored in the last 3 seasons combined. It would have been awesome.
Yeah, but very unlikely because we don't know. I mean, especially when you got half an hour red flag in the middle of a session, you've got no idea who's doing what. I think a lot of them came out to do test starts and put some rubber down.
Yeah.
And things like that. So yeah, qualifying. I know I always say when it rains I kind of predict a really odd qualifying, but that really was a weird qualifying. Obviously they couldn't get Sargent's car together for a start.
Yeah, so this is a bit weirdly structured because of Albon. He got disqualified, but he reached Q3.
Yeah.
So there's only, and because Sargent didn't take part, there's only 4 drivers who don't have times in Q2, but the last one is 18th. Somehow Zhou was slowest in qualifying and ended up 16th on the grid because of all the penalties.
Yeah, it was very weird.
But I mean, this is pretty standard other than that.
Ricciardo's still having a hard time, and I don't think he's got a contract for next year.
They are starting to talk about that RBC. I think Marco's done his thing of making broad, sweeping statements about Liam Lawson will be in the car next year, which suddenly is well, who's going to leave then? And Christian Horner basically said, no, we've not decided yet, shut up.
Well, yeah, which obviously is helping the harmonious relations in that team.
Yeah, very friendly.
But, Ricciardo going out in 15th is not really helping his cause a huge amount, is it?
Not much.
And he was out by 3/10. It wasn't like a...
Yeah, that was fairly...
I mean, not sometimes you get it, that's bad luck, mate, you're out by 8 thousandths or something.
No, hang on a sec, it's not, because this is the finishing orders. So if you look, Hulkenberg got a 1:11.8, 3.2, whereas Magnussen did better in Q1 but worse in Q2, so he's below but he's got a better time.
Oh, yeah.
So if we peer closer, it was only about 1/10 from Hulkenberg. Still not great, yeah.
Yeah, because it occurred to me...
Crucially, 3/10 to his teammate, Tsunoda. That's the kind of,
Yeah, that's what you really look at. It's not... But I was thinking, I've probably said this last week as well. We're getting all excited about, is Antonelli coming in, Behrman's in, Doohan's in. But then that suddenly means, Behrman and Doohan and probably Antonelli means at least 3 guys aren't going to have anywhere to drive.
Who have we lost? Well, we've lost one driver. We knew we'd lost Sargent, I think.
Yeah.
Because of Sainz. And then, let me trace this back. Hamilton took Sainz's seat, so Antonelli should have filled in that gap at Mercedes.
Yeah. The rumours are that that's going to happen very soon.
What are the other ones? Ocon left to go to Haas, so it's looking likely that Magnussen's out.
That's a shame, really. He seems like a nice guy.
Off the track, yeah. He can be a bit harsh.
I suppose he's a bit kind of bully his way through. Didn't he get the most ever penalty points in one race?
I think so. He racked up 5 or something ridiculous because he drove Well, anyway.
But there again, there's another story behind that, 'cause he said he was doing what the team needed him to, which is kind of code for
I'm driving from my seat, or I was told to. It's a bit...
Yeah. Anyway...
Really, I think it's an issue with the regs, because they basically encouraged him to sacrifice his whole race for his teammate.
Yeah.
And that actually did work, because Hulkenberg got points.
Anyway, the really big headline news from qualifying was both Sainz and Hamilton out in Q2.
Yeah.
Which...
I only caught the end of I caught all of Q3, so I basically tuned in and saw Hamilton getting wheeled into the garage, and I was like, oh, that's not good.
I mean, like we were saying, Zaandvort is not a representative track.
No.
He had one hot lap to do it, and I think he caught a gust of wind because it was something like Sector 1, he lost 0.3 of a second. And it's a very short lap, and even if you're Lewis Hamilton or Alonso or Verstappen, you can't.
Yeah.
If you're losing 0.3 in your hot qualifying run in one sector, you've had it.
Especially at Zaandvort, which is very short.
Yeah.
It's like a 70-second lap.
Yeah, I mean, you've got nowhere to hide, really.
Yeah.
And I think both Sainz and Hamilton just put their hands up and went, it is what it is.
That's how it is, yeah.
I mean, you look, it's 0.948, 0.914, and then...
0.8
for
Alonso, 0.845 in Q2. Verstappen 0.81. I remember thinking Verstappen almost got out in Q2 as well. I don't know what Alex Albon's time was, because he's not been...
Yeah, we'll just come back to that. Alex Albon's floor was found to be, did you say 3mm too wide?
Something ridiculous like that. I can have a quick check on the BBC
and we had
Sports.
Quite a spirited debate off microphone that I think old Formula 1, like 60s and 70s, they were chucking everything at it, like V16s, different engine configs.
The good old days, of course, you know.
Boomer time. They had like
six wheels,
six-wheel 2LP34,
raised up wings, the fan car, weird crap like that.
And now, if like a floor is like 3mm out of sync, which is like 1/8 of an inch too wide, then it's like, oh, you're outside the regs. I mean, yes, I know that you've got to kind of have regulations for something, but it does seem... I kind of wonder if maybe they could just lift their foot off the pedal a little bit and give them a bit more freedom to...
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
But there again, I suppose I
think the thing is, there's a range of floor volumes that you could probably have, the same as like wing angles and stuff, and car lengths. Because I remember, and like rakes, like back before ground effect, like all the cars had like very different rake. So I think there is still a fair bit of it.
You're probably right. And then in a pattern we were going to see in the race,
Europe.
In Q3, it was Norris, Verstappen, Piastri.
Yeah, Norris by 0.4, by the way. First into the 109s.
Yeah.
109.6. Pretty brutal.
It's kind of weird. I mean, again, Zaandvort is not a representative track, but it's almost like Norris has become the new Verstappen of like almost unfairly fast.
Yes, I think that is kind of fair enough. Piastri was only a small bit behind Verstappen, about a 10th. Hang on a sec. A 10th? Half a 10th, I'd say?
Yeah, half a 10th.
10th and a half. 29 to 1.172. I can't do the maths, I'm too tired.
Yeah,
he was not far off.
About 1.5 tenths.
So, again, maybe a gust of wind and it could have been a McLaren front row lockout again.
Yeah.
And then the gap's a bit bigger to Russell, and then Perez in 5th. Pretty good, actually.
To be honest, when it's been pretty good, Russell and Hamilton have been fairly well matched, so that's probably about where the Mercedes belong. Yeah,
I'd have thought Hamilton would have either been 4th or 5th, scrapping with Russell. I don't think they quite have the legs to get to McLaren.
No, or to Max Verstappen.
But yes, to Perez.
I mean, Perez actually had a much better day out, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean...
He got it up into 5th.
Which is kind of... Well, it's in that top... In this case, it was the top 6 because of the Hamilton and Sainz being out.
Yeah, and it's not last of the top 6. He was...
No, he beat Leclerc by a 10th.
Yeah, I mean, again, this was a weird race for Ferrari.
Yeah.
The whole weekend, they just didn't seem to be quite there. I mean, nearly a second off pole.
Yeah. Although half of that is the gap between Norris and Verstappen.
Yeah.
To be fair. And then Sainz obviously getting caught out in Q2 with a time that would have been actually 1.3 seconds off pole, like 1:10.9.
Yeah.
I don't know I think the track was rubbering in a lot.
But Ferrari just didn't really seem to be
They
there.
didn't have the quali pace at all.
So we saw both Aston Martins,
Yeah.
an Alpine,
Alpine with Gasly.
and the Williams of Albon actually took part in Q3 until he was found to have an illegal car.
He ended up 8th as well, it looks like, which is pretty good.
So really, I mean, what we talk about a lot on here is the fact that the top 4 teams, the top 8 drivers, are almost like F1 and everybody else is F1.5.
I remember F1.5 was a meme a few years, I think 2018, when there was a top 3. So there were at least 4 places guaranteed every race.
Yeah.
Now there's only 2, really.
So it's quite nice to see both Astons, a Williams, and an Alpine all get some running in the top in the final Q3. Obviously, the Williams was then disqualified.
Looks like Alpine are doing a bit better. I don't know, where did Ocon end up? 16th. Oh man,
I think Gasly's like going, "Yay, I've got a drive."
He's like a second faster than Ocon.
Is Ocon going to?
Ocon's going to Haas next year alongside Behrman.
And then we got this really weird technical rule. Although his car was just still gently smoking in the garage and mechanics were turning themselves inside out to fix it,
Yeah.
officially Logan Sargent took part in Q1 and did not set a time.
It says here Sargent did not take part in qualifying and races at the steward's discretion.
But I think the difference is that Sargent was still on the sheets for Q1.
He was entered into the whole event, I think.
Yeah.
If you turn up with a car and sign your name, that counts as an entry.
Whereas Albon was disqualified from the whole event, so he started behind Sargent.
Yeah, because he effectively broke the rules.
Yeah.
So the starting grid, which is handily a separate tab,
Which really needs to be.
Magnussen got a pit lane start because he replaced PU elements under Parc Fermé.
Yeah.
Then it was Albon because he got DQ'd.
Yeah.
Then it was Sargent. Then it was Zhou Guanyu who set the slowest time in qualifying, starting at 17th.
The second row from the back.
Yeah, which is quite funny that he kind of like was the slowest in quali but has 3 guys behind him.
Now I've seen a graphic
Yeah.
of all the various different components, and a lot of people are up to their limit. Given we've got 9 races to go,
Yeah.
a lot of people are up to their limit of how many, especially the big things that can blow up like turbos, internal combustion engines, MGU and K.
MGU H's and K,
H and K.
kinetic.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
a lot of those are now actually redded out, and I think especially for people like Max Verstappen, who is in a fight for the title, he's going to have a really awkward choice.
Yes.
Is he going to turn his engine down a little bit and then drive nervously,
Safely, yeah.
hoping that the engine's not going to launch itself and he'll have a DNF? Or does he take the hit? You see, I would have thought, and this used to happen and I don't know why they didn't do it, somewhere like Belgium, they would maybe run 2 or 3 extra power units, one in practice, one in qualifying, one in the race. Take an almighty grid drop of like minus 78 places or something.
Yeah, they used to do that.
And then maybe they've changed the rules.
Yeah, I think they might have done, because you don't see those ridiculous grid drops anymore, really.
Well, didn't somebody have a minus 60 in
I
Belgium?
think Sonoda had a minus 50,
Yeah.
but I think that was basically they
Whole
replaced
part.
every part of the engine not individually,
Mm.
not 3 separate MGUKs or something.
Yeah, it's and apparently if you fit a part to your car on a race weekend, under any timed session, leave the pits, and then I think you trigger the timing gate as you leave the pits. That counts as being used in that session.
Well, yeah, because how else are you going to get the car to that point?
Yeah.
It has to go there, and unless you push it with the engine off, in which case they'd say, "What are you doing? That's unsafe." Yeah, so
It is very weird.
but
Verstappen's got a lot of it. I'm going to call the chart up now while I'm talking.
I know he did take big penalties in Belgium because he thought he would be able to win again. I
He only
think.
took a 10th place.
Yeah, he took 10 places, but he's done that before and won. So maybe the fact that he didn't win this time is going to be a bit of a kind of wake-up call that they can't carve through the pack as much as they want to. So they need to be much more tactical and... Well, I don't... There's no real good answer, is there?
Right, you can use 4 each of the... I'll go through the big 4 on this chart I found. Internal combustion, turbocharger, MGU, stroke H, and K.
Yeah.
Actually, there's also 2 exhaust, and I wonder what CE stands for.
Oh man, compression element or something.
Or probably computers or something.
No,
but Max and Sergio have both already taken 5 out of 4 engines.
And they've maxed out every other of the 3.
And everything else they've taken everything for. But interestingly, where the fight is, Lando Norris has only taken 3 of each.
Yeah, so it looks like both Mercedes, both McLarens, and both Astons, for what it's worth, have only used 3 of 4. Leclerc is maxed out, which is interesting.
But Sainz has got an extra engine to use.
I don't know why.
Gasly's maxed everything out.
He's actually gone over once. Where's Tsunoda? Did he have a massive penalty somewhere? Tsunoda's 5 on everything, so he must have... And he's actually, I think, gone over on the exhaust.
Actually, where's Williams on all this?
This is engine components, so I don't know how that would have affected.
Yeah,
Sargent's doing alright.
Albon's up to the limit, but Sargent wasn't. So I know they've been having some expensive crashes.
When was this? When was this updated though? Last update
August the 25th.
Oh, that's like 3 days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
CE is control electronics, is it?
Oh yeah, energy stores. That's the battery.
And the exhaust, they can have a gearbox case and cassette.
They can have 5 of those.
Gearbox driveline.
This is really the exciting, dramatic stuff of Formula One.
Well, it will be as we get near the end.
I know it will. It will. It's just like.
So the actual race.
Yeah. So.
It was, again, but this time I think it's an engine problem because once again both McLarens lost places off the start.
Yeah, both of them did this time, not just Norris.
And the way that Zach Brown was talking, I think it's more that Red Bull have got something absolutely right in their launch control.
Yeah.
I think it's second phase of launch that the McLarens tend to wheel spin.
Yeah, they bogged down on wheel spin. Verstappen seems to be quite smooth in the second phase.
And then generally the race kind of went down a strategy tyre management race, didn't it?
Yeah, which was not terribly interesting really. It was just...
I mean, yes, we got some excitement. For the first 18 laps, Max led Lando Norris, and then Lando actually on the track, one car next to another, overtaking, took the lead.
Yeah, no safety cars, no touching wheels.
No pit stops, undercuts.
I don't even know if there was like back markers affecting the DRS or anything. I know Norris had DRS. But it was a perfectly clean Max, Lando is faster than you overtake.
Yes. Which I don't think we see an awful lot nowadays.
Well, you can probably count on your fingers the number of times Verstappen's been overtaken on track like that in the last 2 years.
Especially for the lead.
Yeah. It has happened a bit more recently this year. But
it seemed to me they kind of stuffed up Oscar Piastri's strategy a bit.
Yeah, they left him in the lead very long because they thought having hard tyres that were 6 laps fresher than those around him would be an unassailable advantage that would get him... It just didn't work out like that.
No, we said this a lot this year. For some reason, the strategists on the pit wall tend to think if you get to the last 10, 15 laps of a race with younger tyres, somehow you'll scythe through the field and overtake one car every 3 laps and make up the ground you've lost from the pit stop. And I don't think we've ever seen it work.
No, pretty much. I mean, unless you... 5 laps to go and everyone else is on 50 lap old hards and you pit onto fresh softs, maybe.
Yeah.
But the tyre delta needs to be enormous, not like 5 laps on the hards. It's just not worth it.
No.
And you could tell because Leclerc did basically the undercut of the year because he was behind
Russell,
who was behind Piastri.
Yeah.
Or was Piastri trying to get back? No,
it started Norris, Verstappen, Piastri, Russell, Leclerc.
But I thought Piastri lost out to
I think
Russell. I'm going to check the highlights on my phone again.
Yeah, and I mean, Lewis Hamilton did a cracking job from starting. I can't remember now with all the penalties
14th.
and ups and downs.
I think the starting grid, which is obviously a totally different beast
Oh,
from
yeah.
the qualifying
He
result.
got like a 3-point penalty for blocking Perez.
Yeah. Look at this. Hamilton
14th.
penalised 3 good places. Albon disqualified. Sargent didn't take part. Magnussen required to start from the pit lane. He started 14th.
But he started on softs,
Yeah.
and he basically made the softs last as long as everybody else made the mediums last somehow.
Yeah, his first stint.
24 laps.
And he was also quick. He wasn't like
Well, no,
tiptoeing
he
round.
wasn't tiptoeing round. He had 24 laps on the soft tyre, and he overtook a whole bunch of people. Basically, he overtook the Formula 1.5 people
Yeah.
and got up to the back of the top 8.
Which maybe is kind of an indication that the gap there is actually widening a bit.
Yeah.
Like even Mercedes were not particularly fast, but Hamilton on the soft in the Mercedes could just eat like the Astons and the Alpines and the Hasses and the RBs alive.
Yeah, and if you look, everybody down to P9 was lapped. That's a fairly
Yeah.
big indicator. I
And
didn't understand in the end of the race why they pitted George Russell.
no, I think Russell did a 2-stopper in the end.
Yeah, but if he was out there on hards and he had track position,
He was the penultimate driver to pit. Albon also pitted on lap 54.
which only gave him 18 laps to try and make up the...
Yeah, and he didn't even get close to Perez, who was in 6th.
It's like 5 seconds off him, but
So Russell dropped like 3 places, and Hamilton gained like 6.
yeah, I mean, it always happens if you get somebody out to play Sainz as well.
Sainz did an awesome race actually, up to 5th.
Actually, it was a really good day out for Ferrari.
Yeah, they converted.
Sainz went 13th to 5th.
Was it 13th in the end for Sainz? No, he was 10th in the end.
Oh yeah, because Lewis had a grid drop as well.
So 10th to 5th and 6th to 3rd. They
yeah,
probably, as a team, gained the most positions of anybody.
yeah, and I think they spoke to Leclerc afterwards, and he was like, "I actually can't believe this." I mean, normally, someone like Charles Leclerc would be, "Oh God, I'm on 3rd. At least it's a podium."
Yeah, but Ferrari, starting 5th, he's probably like, "Oh man, am I even going to be in the
No, he
points?"
was 6th.
He was 6th, and he's like, "Man, am I even going to be in the points here?" But
And again, Perez did a decent job. Started 5th, finished 6th.
he lost out to Sainz, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
But he was also kind of helped by Russell's weird pit stop. He was kind of just ineffectual the whole race. He kind of just sat in 5th and 6th.
considering we've seen him go out in Q1 and then struggle to make up places.
Yeah, it's a bare minimum, I think.
I think it's a big step change, actually. I think
Yeah.
he's actually up there with the other top 8, and he's actually doing his job. I mean, okay, it wasn't there for helping out with pit strategy and everything.
He's got like 2 months until Mexico, so
Yeah.
it's a while to get his head back together.
So, yeah, right.
Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc.
But the important thing is, over the summer break, in the World Drivers' Championship, Lando Norris was 78 points behind Max Verstappen.
Yes.
Now, there were 10 race weekends, because I know there were 3 sprints to go.
Mm-hmm.
What he needed to do was make up at least 7.8 points every race weekend.
Yes.
And because he got the fastest lap,
He got 26.
which means there's nothing... I mean, Max did everything he could do and hung on in second,
Yeah.
but he still made up 8 points.
Which is...
What?
If Lando Norris does that every single race, he will sneak the championship by like a handful of points.
Well, yeah, because there's 3 sprint weekends, so we'll get another 3 points out of that if he comes first and Max comes second.
Is it not? What's the sprint rules?
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh yeah,
I
3
think.
total. Yeah, okay.
But
So it is possible mathematically.
also you can't discount the fact that the Ferrari are getting closer. I think when it's a bit of more representative track, Mercedes will be there in the mix.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Lando needs to keep winning races, but
Yes.
even if he gets Piastri in second,
Well, yeah,
that would tip the scales a lot more in his
It
favour.
might get to the point where it's like Piastri McLaren won 2, Verstappen in 3rd. They might say to Oscar, hold station, don't challenge Norris, and if he gets close to you, try and back like Verstappen off, try and hold him up as much as possible. And I think Oscar would do it actually, because he's quite sensible in that respect.
Yeah, we're back to this argument where they gave Oscar his first win. Maybe now they've given Oscar his first win, he'll be more willing to...
He was anyway back in the day, like back in like Japan last year I think. They said Oscar just let him through a whole station, and he was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's very calm and chill.
But yeah, you said Zaandvort's not a representative track.
Yeah.
What is representative then? Because
I think places like Spa, Silverstone, Japan.
What about Baku? That's quite power heavy, but it's got twisty bits in the middle.
Baku's quite representative of your street tracks, I think.
Singapore's actually quite weird because it's bumpy and very tight, but it is also usually quite a good laugh.
I think Mexico as well.
Mexico's very high up, so it's got thinner air.
Yeah.
Cota's pretty standard, or is that? Which one is that? That is Circuit of the Americas.
Yeah, because that's the United States.
Brazil's quite good as well.
Yeah, Brazil's quite tight and twisty.
Abu Dhabi's quite normal.
Yeah, the Middle Eastern races are quite
boring. I mean, basic, standard, yeah. I don't know much about Vegas, to be honest. Look, that's a weird track.
Well, it's only the second time they've been there, so...
Anyway, yeah. Could be the case that Norris wins. If there's even one Verstappen DNF to a Norris win, everyone's going to go mad and be like, it's happening, it's happening. Look at only a 50-point gap.
Yeah, that really is. Well, anyway.
Yeah.
So, before we look ahead to... Is it Italy?
Oh, it's Italy this weekend.
Monza.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
We kind of got lulled into the 3-week gap and just being slack. And now we're recording this on a Thursday.
Yeah.
There is driver transfer news.
Yes.
Well, I don't even know this guy's first name. Colapinto.
Yeah, Franco Colapinto.
Argentinian, doing quite well in F2.
6th, I think, at the moment.
Has taken Logan Sargent's seat.
Yeah.
Oh no.
What?
Does anybody know what length of contract he's been given? But it's Sykes and Albon.
Yeah. It's a weird choice, I think, Colapinto specifically. I'm sure he's a very good driver.
He's also in the Williams Driver Academy.
Yeah, that's probably the main reason they wanted to do it, rather than what I think a lot of people thought the obvious choice was getting Antonelli in for a year.
That's the rumour I've heard. Or even for like 9 races just to get his feet wet in Formula 1.
But I think James Vowles wants to maybe break that connotation that Williams is basically a Mercedes B team.
Yeah.
With what happened to Russell being effectively stuck there. Vowles coming in, maybe he's like, well, we've got our Williams Junior team, so we're going to give our Williams Juniors a chance in the Williams car.
And also,
they want to be at the front.
I noticed that when Jack Doohan came up from F2,
yeah,
he was also, I think, was he in the Alpine Drivers Academy?
Yeah, he was an Alpine young driver.
And I think they said we're really happy because it's the first one of our young drivers that we've put through all the way to F1.
Yeah.
So I think they're trying to create an established pathway.
Kind of the Red Bull model, because the Red Bull Driver Academy's got 1 million drivers in it.
Yeah. And yet you've got Max Verstappen sitting there for 8 years in the same seat at the top. But
that's
anyway.
not as egregious as Perez still being there, in my opinion. But whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I was thinking, even actually Max Verstappen has said this about new drivers.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I did some time at Toro Rosso, I think they were then.
They were Toro Rosso. He did a season and like 3 races.
And he said that's what you need. You need time to make your mistakes when nobody's watching you.
Yeah.
And I think bringing Antonelli, which is the big rumour, is that Antonelli will be announced as the Mercedes driver, the partner Russell.
Yeah.
I think bringing him straight into what's basically one of the top 4 teams, I'm not quite sure where they'll fit.
Yeah.
I think the only other time that I can remember that being done again is Toto Wolff. No, not Toto Wolff.
Be Ron Dennis back then, if you're
Be
thinking
Ron
of
Dennis.
Hamilton.
Yeah, when Hamilton went straight into a championship-winning team.
I mean, I can think of a few times. Magnussen made his debut with McLaren, and it was 2014 or 2013 when they were still really good, and he got a podium in his first race. But then he was dropped after like 3 or 4 more races because he wasn't doing what they wanted.
Yeah.
So it's a big risk, and I think that's why Toto's kind of wringing his hands a bit about it and not.
And also there was this, I said this before, Lewis Hamilton was really annoyed that when he started the 2022 season, after all the drama of 21, he'd lost Bottas and got Russell in.
Yeah.
And I think that's another reason why Toto is wringing his hands and deciding what to do, because there is really that feeling of who's number one driver at Mercedes? What is their, long-term strategy?
Do you mean now or next year? Cause it's
long-term strategy from now. Because like Russell's a good, fast driver. He's pretty much had the measure of Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
In similar machinery.
And he's got the head to win races. He's kind of touted as a potential champion.
But then you don't bring up somebody who would be a good rear gunner and
well, if you've got Alonso, you don't bring in Hamilton.
Yeah.
Back in 2007, like that was the blueprint.
Yeah.
And it went really impressively badly.
But then you look at the Hamilton-Bottas partnership. No offence to Bottas, he's a good driver. He's excellently funny. He's fast enough. But he was a brilliant B driver to Hamilton.
Again, Q3 103 times in a row.
Yeah.
Every race with Mercedes Q3.
But not quite having that extra edge, so he didn't get the Rosberg-Hamilton nastiness.
Yeah.
And
that's kind of like the Rosberg-Hamilton stuff is like the end stage of Alonso versus... It's like a much longer term bubbling kind of thing.
So I'm going to watch FP1 tomorrow because you're going to have Kimi Antonelli out.
Yes.
Franco Colapinto, although actually now with a proper seat, not in the FP1 weirdness.
Again, having good practice, not being called in at the last minute, having, he's done an FP1 at Britain as well. So he's already been in the car. He's not, it's kind of...
Yeah, I thought the name sounded familiar.
Yeah, I've kind of been keeping half an eye on Formula 2. It's not a name it's a name I have heard before.
Yeah, it wasn't a complete shock to me either.
Yeah.
So we got Monza this time.
Yeah.
This weekend is Monza.
Which
very, very fast. Fastest track on the calendar, shall we say?
Yeah. Well, it's where they have the highest average speed lap, which is like...
It's still Kimi Räikkönen did a lap over 160 miles an hour average.
I think so. I think that's the...
I'm not going to look it up, but yeah.
I'll look it up.
We're going to see how Colapinto does, how many cars he writes off. Although actually I did see a stat that Sargent has scored 0 points in 36 races.
Yeah. I think he has scored a point in his whole career. Because they were talking about how he became the first American point scorer since the 90s, I think.
Oh, okay. But
that was quite a kind of... I wonder if it's in here, actually.
And also it's Leclerc and Sainz at the Ferrari home race.
Yeah, they've got a, quote, special livery, which is really, I think, hilariously underwhelming. I don't know if it's on here.
Didn't they do like Miami in blue or something?
Yeah, I thought that was quite cool, actually, if I remember it correctly.
Yeah, it's a bit confusing, but...
They have done blue Ferraris in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think...
Oh, well, just before we sign off, because I think we're about there for the weekend.
Yeah, come on.
George Russell, perfect gentleman. Logan Sargent stuffed his Williams.
Yes.
Obviously, he sat in the car, sitting there going, when's the world going to stop spinning?
Mm-hmm.
He thumbed his radio and said, yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah.
They come on the radio and said, yeah, mate, your car's on fire, get out.
Yes.
And then Russell goes past, slows down and actually gestures at him to get out of the car.
Yeah.
Which is kind of...
We've seen that from him before, though. Remember when Joe flipped over and ended up... He actually got out of the car and went over to help.
And then he stuffed
his race because he couldn't get in again.
That was a qualifying session, I think.
No, it was the race. It was the race start. Joe flipped over and got wedged between the Armco and the catch fence. there was a red flag because there were like cars everywhere. It was carnage. And then Russell got out of his car and went over to look, but then they couldn't start the car again. I think the Mercedes was one of the ones that can't start from the cockpit.
No, it's a legal thing. I think if you get out of the car on the racetrack, your race is over. You're DNF'd.
Yeah.
If it's red flag conditions, you are instructed to head back to the pits, and when you're in your pit box, you can then leave the car and get back in.
Yeah.
But you can't leave the car on the racetrack. I mean, yes, it's a very good sportsmanlike, gentlemanly thing to do.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, it's a bit. You know what? We've got really well trained professional marshals out there who know what to do, who've got first aid, who've got fire extinguishers. Probably the best thing he could have done was just to kind of go eesh and then drive back to the pits. It's a bit harsh, but
it is, again, it's the adrenaline thing, isn't it? It's the sort of opposite way of like when they swear at other drivers. It's probably Russell high on adrenaline going, I've got to help him, I've got to go and like make sure he's
and
okay.
also, like you say, he's a nice guy.
Yeah, same with the sergeant thing. He's like, I'm not going to get out of the car.
He's learned his lesson.
Yeah, I'm not going to do anything silly, like have to get it craned back. But, oi, Logan, get out, it's on fire.
And again, I'm not quite a boomer, by the way, but do you remember like the 80s and 90s where like if somebody crashed, they would just hop on another driver's side pod and get a lift back?
Yes.
And
I was kind of hoping that's where that story was going as well. I think they should be allowed to do that because it's awesome.
I think they just get massive fines if they tried it, don't they?
Oh, almost. I think they did back then. I think 2017, Vettel got a lift on Verline's, whatever it was, Sauber?
Yeah.
After he got hit by Stroll, but that was after the race. And I think that's the last time it's happened.
Yeah.
I think they both probably got fined up.
Also, probably, I'm not sure the side pods are strong enough now.
You can probably sit on the halo though, or something.
Yeah.
The halos must have to be strong enough.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be able to like hold
Well,
a bus or something.
They take the whole weight of the car, don't they?
Yeah, they can. Apparently, I think it's like 3 double-decker buses. You could drop on them and they wouldn't break or something.
Well, there's a lot of force. Anyway, we're rambling now.
Epically rambling.
I'm going to say thank you for listening.
I don't think there's anything else to talk about.
No, I think this podcast has been about as short as the track at Zaandvort.
No, about as long as like Britain. Pretty average length.
Averagely. Okay then. I've been Graham Miller. If you like a good mystery novel, search any search engine for Graham H. Miller. Most of our listeners come to us from Toby's official Tibby YouTube channel, so check that out if you want. And we'll see you in a few days, because I think they're coming thick and fast now, aren't they?
Yeah, it's Italy next. I think we've got a little break after Italy.
Yeah, to get to Baku.
I think it's just a 1 week then, Baku, if I have a look.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's Singapore straight away. Then there's a month between Singapore and the US, which is a bit weird.
Anyway, we're going to say goodbye.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to you about Italy soon.
Yes, bye.
Bye.